We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And we've got our regular episode that's happening here right now that you're listening to. But if you're eagle-eyed, you might just discover a second episode of AVRant that should be coming out this week. That's the plan anyway. If it turns out it isn't there, then something went horribly awry, but on the schedule. It could happen. We never know anything genuinely beforehand.
Yeah.
But yes, there could be a second episode, a special episode for you to look out for.
Yes, so that's the exciting thing that's going on this week. I have very little news. So it was my son's birthday this week.
Okay.
This last week. So 23 years old. He's my eldest. And he doesn't really celebrate that much things. Okay. He's not a party kind of guy. So
all right.
We had a little family celebration and did the thing we normally do, which is Dad tells stories about the funny stories about him when he was a baby, and he likes to hear them to the family.
To the rest of the family.
Yeah, they've all heard them before. It doesn't make any difference. They still laugh. They still think it's funny. So
you're going for that big fish energy.
Well, nobody is as fascinated in your stories as much as you are. So telling stories about him to him is a guaranteed crowd pleaser. He just loves it.
Okay, I got you.
Every year we for birthdays we do this for the kids that want it. They have one child who's not super interested, but the other two like to hear it. So not a lot happened this week. It's been kind of slow around here, getting back to life as usual. My youngest son is, like you guys know, he's home from camp and working and traveling and everything. And did that happen? I guess that happened last week. I guess he came home last week.
Don't ask me. Everything's blurring together for me, too. It's all turning into a haze.
I mean, we've been watching World Cup. None of the teams I want to win have been winning. So it's been not great from my perspective. All you people who are like, and it's funny because I watch IFSC, which is the International Federation of Sport Climbing, which I think they just call World Climbing now. But anyways, I watch climbing, and I understand very deeply, the strategies, the techniques, what things are hard, what things aren't hard, why things are hard, that sort of thing, why they're waiting, why they're doing certain things. So I understand all that when I watch that. I have a very deep understanding. I have a very deep understanding of the sport. Soccer or football, I have almost none. Okay. So people are very upset about things, and I'm like, I totally don't understand what you're talking about. They're like, I don't understand why they didn't switch up their strategy. They just kept doing the same thing over and over again. I'm like, they're all doing the same thing. I mean, they're just kicking the ball back and I don't know what you're talking about.
There is a little more nuance than just kicking the ball back and forth.
Yeah, of course, and I understand that. But I watch it on such a surface level. I'm like, I will tell you one thing. I do understand what offsides is. Like, I feel as an American,
it's not
that
really
puts me above like 90%.
Offside in football is not really that hard to understand.
You would be surprised how many people around here, that's the first thing they say about soccer is like, what is offsides? Doesn't make any sense.
Asking to have it explained is fine, but once it's explained, it's not that difficult to understand.
It really isn't, but they refuse to understand it. Like, as a people, we're like, I'm not going to understand what offsides is.
Exact same offside as it is in American football, so okay. Yeah.
American football, I love, and by the way, we need to call it gridiron because that's what they call it in Australia, and that's way harder than football. That's just so much, that's such a better name than football. Just call it gridiron. That is awesome. How is that not what we call it? We should, as a nation, just that doesn't collectively decide.
Does not sound like some kind of derogatory term to call it that at all. So, that should be all right.
Yeah, gridiron. just sounds hard. But that game, as much as, and of all of the big three popular American sports, that's the one I like the best, by far. But people who are like, man, there's just nothing happens. I mean, it's just like a bunch of standing around, and I'm like, you're not wrong.
I wouldn't say that about American
I mean, you're not
football
wrong.
at all.
I mean,
I could see someone saying that about baseball.
Players. Look at the soccer players. Oh, don't even get me started on baseball. Look at the soccer players. It is nonstop. They don't even have commercials for like 45 straight minutes.
And people are complaining about the hydration breaks because they're like, they just put those in there so they could show some commercials on TV. I'm like,
that is exactly why they did it. Are you kidding me?
Well, I mean, it is, but also when it's 98 degrees and 85% humidity, I'm like,
poor Norway players playing at 5 p.m. in Miami.
Yeah,
I mean, how could you expect them to win? I mean,
break,
I'm surprised they didn't melt into like they weren't like what's his name? The snowman from Frozen.
Olaf.
I'm surprised they weren't like Olaf and just melted into puddles.
Right. Yeah, no, I don't think the 2 orange slices at halftime is going to be enough in the Miami conditions. So,
God. So yes, we've been watching that, and that's been fine. But it's just been very busy around here as we're getting life back to normal with my son.
Yeah. I mean, if Switzerland had won their game, it would have been a surprisingly all Euro-centric final going on there. So it's.
And everybody talking about cheating and refereeing, poor refereeing and stuff like that. I have no idea. I don't have no idea about many of the rules and stuff like that. So, I mean, everyone makes some good points or whatever. But I also was like, why aren't there more referees? Like in American football, gridirons, I like to call it. There are like referees everywhere. there's at least one per side. I mean, they just seem like they're all. I'm surprised they're not getting mowed down left and right. They seem to be so many of them. There's at least one on each sideline. There's at least one in the backfield of each team, and I don't know. There just seems to be a lot of them.
I mean, I think in
soccer, there's like 3.
Yeah,
right.
I think the fun of having only like one referee on the field, on the pitch. I think the fun of that would be if there were no video review. Like that would actually be more fun. No video review and one referee who's actually on the pitch making the calls other than the offside.
I have watched very little soccer. I need everybody to understand that I'm coming from a place of deep, deep ignorance. Every single time I have watched soccer, and then it's always been before video review, obviously. Every single time, every single call was wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, every single call I saw, I was like, that's not right. That was not the last person that touched the ball before it went out. But if every call is wrong,
sure,
it's the same for everybody. Yes. And that's equal, and it's okay.
And then it makes all the over-the-top theatrics of all the players like that much more enjoyable instead of just being like, they're just going to video review it, so why do all the theatrics?
No. From a personal standpoint, this is not American versus rest of the world. I hate flopping. I hate lying. I am morally, I have a very strong moral compass that requires that I tell the truth a lot and requires that I try to act in a moral way. And to see these guys, and I do understand like how you got to the point where you flop. You are. There's only one dude out there looking at you.
That's right.
And you need to get his attention.
Yes.
Or lady. I don't know if how the refereeing works. There's only one person on the field that you have to get their attention. Mm-hmm. So you may start off a little, like I only act hurt when I'm actually hurt. To slowly listen, I'm getting hurt and no one's paying attention to me.
Indeed.
I better ham it up a little bit. And then pretty soon it just escalates into this guy got too close to me and I don't like that they made a goal. I'm going to fall on the ground and grab my leg.
But video review takes that away.
You know what? It's not my game.
Yeah.
And all of you who love this game, the beautiful game or whatever they call it, all of you who love it, have been watching it for years, all of your opinions matter. All of your opinions and everything you say, I agree. I'm hearing you, and my opinion means nothing because I don't watch this game. I'm not invested in it. I haven't like been watching it develop over years, all these other things. But the flopping really does bother me. It's on a personal level. But that's just me.
All right, that's been World Cup. So yeah, in Hollywood-related news, I did want to say our condolences to Sam Neill's family. The passing of Sam Neill. A little bit unexpected. Yeah, so that's a notable death in the Hollywood community.
It's funny, Sam Neill, I've seen him in so many movies, right? So many movies. But the first thing that popped into my mind was like, was it Event Horizon? He was in like some sort of Lovecraftian.
He was definitely in Event Horizon for sure.
Yeah, it's a Lovecraftian scene where he's like all cut up and like speaking in a whatever and trying to get whoever it was to go to hell with him or whatever it was. And that was the first image that popped in my mind. I'm like, why not Jurassic Park, Tom?
Yeah.
Why not Jurassic Park?
Most people probably Jurassic Park. But
yeah. Yes. But that's the first image that came into my mind when I heard about him dying. But he's been in so many great things. And he seemed to be, I mean, it's really hard to tell, but he seemed to be a genuinely nice person. So I don't know.
At least kept his public image clean. So there you go. That much he did.
These days, yeah, that we can see. So yeah. So what about you, Rob? What did you do this week? Anything exciting?
No, I can't say anything exciting. Again, just behind the scenes, just taking care of sort of mundane health things with the extended family and all of that. So, it takes up the time, but there's not exactly a lot of news
We're
to
in
report.
the doldrums of summer, I guess.
A little bit of something like that, yeah. And once again, I'm definitely not going to rub in whatsoever that we've been having pretty nice weather. I know most other places seem to be suffering this summer very, very badly. So fingers crossed that doesn't exactly make its way over to where I'm living. But British Columbia has been experiencing wildfires as expected for sure. So plenty going on.
Yeah. All right, so let's get, I guess, directly to what we watched. Yeah. I did finish last night the first season of Daredevil Born Again.
Okay.
9 episodes. I did check, and season 2 is out. I actually checked the order that Marvel stuff has been released.
Right.
And I've some things I've seen already that I shouldn't have seen yet, and then some things that I haven't seen. Like What If season 3, I think is the next thing I'm supposed to watch. Right. But whatever. But I did check, and season 2 of Daredevil is 8 episodes, which I was like, are they actually making the seasons fit the story instead of the story fit the season, the length of the season that they want to make? Because my biggest gripe with the Netflix Daredevil, all the Netflix stuff with Marvel was that it very much felt like we are going to do 10 episodes. That's it. And you need to fill 10 episodes worth of show. And then it felt to me like in most of the Daredevil seasons, they had 3, maybe 4 episodes of content.
Okay.
And then they were like, all right, well, we got to do something else in the middle here. Let's have him get injured and he'll lay in a bed.
Dude, what if they had 22 or 24 episodes?
I know. But I felt like this was a very good season. I felt like season 1 was very good. It didn't feel like there was too much filler. The extra villain that wasn't the Kingpin in this thing, basically the extra villain or villains that were in there seemed to have a point to exist.
Good.
They were a motivational, like a tool to show how Daredevil, the character, was changing over the course of the season.
My goodness, a character arc.
I know, strange, right? I just think overall this was really good. Bloodier than I expected. I'll be honest with you. For a Marvel, like they did not flinch from that, which I think is important for a Daredevil series, and for the fact that this is all within the same world as the Punisher and Iron Fist and
Jessica Jones,
Luke Cage, and
I mean, technically, it's within the same world as the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah. But this is a more street level thing and that sort of thing. So, in seeing Charlie Cox, right? That's his name. Yep. Back in the role, of course, I've already commented that I thought he was great, and I really like him as the character. I think he does a very good job portraying that. I don't know any blind people.
Okay.
But it feels it feels realistic to me. The way that he holds himself.
Other than the supernatural ability part of it.
Yeah, other than that part. But, the way that he's reacting to sounds and, the way his superpowers or whatever works and that sort of thing feels pretty good. Does not feel forced. Okay. So I enjoyed it quite a bit. I'm looking forward to the second season. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely check it out.
Nice. Yeah, no, I haven't watched through Daredevil Born Again yet. I am feeling the little bit of homework on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I intend to get through them at some point. That is the plan. So you're complete on your comments on that one?
Yes.
Okay, in which case I'll talk about the one movie I watched this week, which is, the movie du jour of the moment right now, Obsession. I did watch Obsession.
Everybody's talking about this thing.
Yes, indeed. I watched this on Apple TV. That is the method by which I viewed this movie. And so, shown in I don't think it's exactly 4:3 because it had pillar box bars, this one. But the pillar box bars were not large enough for this to be down to the full 4:3. It seemed a little bit narrower than a 2 to... no, it wouldn't be 2 to 1. Whatever the aspect ratio is, I didn't look it up beforehand, but it's a little bit wider than 4:3, but it came with pillar box bars, so a little bit notable there, particularly for folks who might be watching this on a 2.35 to 1 display, CinemaScope display. If that's what you're doing, you're going to have some very thick black bars on the left and rights of your screens there, or you're going to have some of the image at the top and bottom cropped off. So this was shot on a very low budget, and so it has made a pile of money because it's done very, very well at the box office, and it's doing very, very well in the home release. Obviously, the writer, director, and editor of this movie, Curry Barker, is going to have plenty of things being thrown his way after the success of this movie. Young guy, I think he's 27 right now, something like that, 26, 27, so young guy, sort of up and coming, but yeah, definitely made a name for himself with this movie for sure. Because this was, very much done on a low budget, you're not going to have like spectacular visuals that are going on here. I thought the cinematography was done like a tick above adequately. It's better than adequate, but I'm not going to be like over the moon about the cinematography or anything. I don't think there were like wildly inventive camera angles or movements or something like that. This is not some kind of like Sam Raimi-esque, I'm creating my own visual style type of a stamp of a movie. But yeah, if you have no idea what this movie about, I mean, it's not trying to proclaim that it's any more clever than the basic premise of it is. This is be careful what you wish for. It's as simple as that, and they have the main character speak directly to that. When he comes across the sort of novelty item that is there to grant the wish in this movie, he's like, oh, let me guess. People make their wish and it doesn't go the way they want it to, or they wish they could undo it, or like, he just speaks it out loud, and it's like, yeah, the movie absolutely knows that this is not some kind of, brand new premise that has never been ventured into before for a horror movie. It's like, no, this is well-trodden territory, but we're gonna do our version of it, and let's see how it goes. So we've got Michael Johnston as the main character in here, and so I would say that the writing of this main character kind of insulates the character from being a character that you can be too critical of, because they make it very clear at the beginning. He has a diagnosed mental illness. He is medicated, probably over-medicated, but that isn't really his fault, right? I mean, he's not the one writing the prescriptions. And so because of that, like, if you're any bit of an empathetic person, it's a little bit of a cheat, I feel, in the writing, because it's kind of like, well, he doesn't say the things that this character should say, but they've built in the reason why the character doesn't say the obvious things. They've built in why he is just kind of deer in the headlights throughout most of this movie, and doesn't doesn't know how to respond to anything that's going on. I mean, they built that in from the very first moments that we meet this character. And to me, that's a little bit of a problem because, you know, if I'm following a protagonist who's going through a horror movie arc, I want to be able to have that character take some agency and take some responsibility for the things that he's done. And it feels like a bit of a cheat to say, well, you can't really do that because we've explained why he is the way that he is and it's not his fault. And it's kind of like, oh, well, that kind of takes the fun out of it, you know, as a whole. Like, horror movies, unless they're truly just meant to be utterly terrifying, which this movie absolutely is not. There are plenty of moments in this movie that are straight up played for laughs. And so it's meant to be sort of an entertaining horror movie, but it takes, for me anyway, it takes a bit of the fun out of it when I can't really either yell at the main character for doing the stupid things. Don't go in there, man. Like, you don't get to have that fun with this character. They've insulated him too much, is my personal criticism of it. But of course, Michael Johnston aside, the real standout of this movie, the actor getting all of the attention, is Indy Navarrete. I did know her from the Superman and Lois CW series. Yeah. She was a main character in that. And so, yes, pretty much like all of the, oh, this is like something more than just a run-of-the-mill, very low-budget horror film is all because of her and her performance. And so, yeah, if you're familiar with the Careful What You Wish For, you know, Michael Johnston is pining over Indy Navarrete's character and makes a wish that she would love him more than anybody else in the world. And, of course, things go horribly awry when you make a wish like that, and it actually comes true. So I thought that this movie contained so many ideas where I was like, ooh, could we go down that path? Could we pull on that thread? Because that's an interesting thread. Like, you know, forget about the overarching premise. Like, that's an interesting thread that they've introduced. There is this quadrangle of friends. They're all young. They're all in their early 20s. The other two are played by Cooper Tomlinson and Megan Lawless. And for some reason, Andy Richter is in this movie. not for any real particular. He wasn't a producer on this movie, so I don't exactly know why they got Andy Richter to be in this movie. But there he is. He's not like a main character or anything like that. But he's just you notice him because hey,
he's walking through the studio and they were like, "Hey, you want to be in this movie real quick?" He's like, "I mean, I'm here. I guess."
Exactly why. But you have this quadrangle of friends, and of course, there is some of them like each other, and who knows, maybe somebody slept with somebody else or whatever it was. And honestly, I wish they had spent more time in those character dynamics, because like one of the fun things in not just a horror movie, any movie, is the unreliable narrator. That's a very fun thing. And so very much in real life, when you hear something about one of your other friends from a different friend, you have to question a little bit of like, are they really telling me exactly what that other person said? Does the person I'm hearing it from have ulterior motives? And all of that is in, like, this isn't me wishing that were in this movie. All of that is in this movie. It just isn't the focus of this movie in any way. And stuff kind of quickly comes and goes and gets glossed over. And it's like, but go back. I want to pull on that thread. That's the more interesting movie to me. And then, of course, there's is this entire thing a metaphor? Because, I mean, most horror movies are metaphors. Yeah. And it's like, is this entire thing a metaphor? And I felt that this movie was too direct in saying, no, it's supernatural. Like, it just is. And they give you a moment in this movie where there is absolutely no other explanation other than for it to be supernatural. There is no way you could think your way out of maybe somebody just misinterpreted, or it was only in their head, or this is only supposed to be a metaphor. Like, there is a moment in this movie where there is absolutely no way for it to be anything other than supernatural. And I was kind of like, oh, like, for me, that's a bit disappointing, because I tend to prefer the horror movies where if you want to, you can look at it at face value and take the supernatural explanation for things. But if you want to, you could interpret it a different way. And unfortunately, I don't think this movie leaves any wiggle room for that. It's supernatural, that's it. And I mean, that's okay. You can go ahead and wrap it up in a nice, neat little bow like that if you want to. But again, I just felt like through most of this movie, they left it open enough where I was like, like, of course, somebody making a wish on a novelty item, if we're to believe that this is taking place in the real world, then you would have to go, well, what is the alternate explanation? Like, why is she acting this way? Why has the entire way that she behaves to Michael Johnston's main character, like, why has that changed so obviously and so drastically? And then they even did the thing where it wasn't like an instantaneous, like, massive change. Like, she actually kind of plays it cool a little bit at the beginning and kind of, I mean, fairly quickly, because this is not a long movie. It's only an hour and 40 minutes long, but fairly quickly things shift, but she kind of eases into it. And I was like, oh, so could we, and in this movie, they're like, oh, well, she has some mental illness of her own. And it's like, okay, so can this whole movie be about that? Can this be taking mental illness and examining it through a horror movie lens and taking it as a metaphor that way? I'm like, again, can we pull on that thread? Can we spend more time there? But unfortunately, no, we're going to be a little bit more direct and everything. So yeah, I very much dislike movie criticisms where the reviewer or the critic just talks about the movie they wish that the movie had been instead. I don't necessarily think that's a valid criticism, but what I do think is a valid criticism, the criticism that I'm attempting to make here, is when the movie itself does contain the ideas, where it's not like, oh, I wish they had introduced this idea. No. The movie introduced the idea. I just wish they'd spent more time with it. That's the feeling that I had. Then my other thing where it's just a flat out criticism is, Tom, you will know this from all of your improv experience. A very poor choice of dialogue for any character to make is, what just happened? What was that? What are you doing? That is boring. It's very boring to have a character come into a scene or, be in a scene and whatever event in that scene happens and have their reaction be, what was that? What are you doing? What's going on? What? Unfortunately, that's like 50% of this movie.
Explain to me the thing that we just saw. How about not?
Right. And it's like, there are the people who feel like that is realistic dialogue. I go, well, if that's realistic dialogue, I don't want it in my movie. Like give me something better than realistic dialogue if that's what you think is realistic dialogue, because that is boring dialogue. I mean, where was the screenwriting 101? Because that's one of the first things they tell you is don't have a character ask what. Show us what, and then have the character ask why and how. Those are the interesting questions, not what. What is a boring question for any character to actually verbally ask out loud. You can have a comedic what come up sometimes. You can use that to great effect, but yeah, 50% of your dialogue should not be what just happened, what's going on. It's boring. So I mean, I have that strong criticism of the dialogue because it was like, man, where was the screenwriting pass? Get an experienced screenwriter in here, pay them a little bit of money to go through this script and punch it up because it desperately needed it. So that then leads me to the flip side of saying, you know what? Let's take the two main actors who I don't think were given a ton of strong dialogue, and the non-verbal performances they gave, I want to give them even better credit, because there's no way this movie, Obsession, would be getting the type of praise and recognition that it's getting if it weren't for the non-verbal performances of the two leads. That's where this movie stands out. Those two actors elevated this script beyond what was on the page, without question, and they absolutely deserve praise for that. So if you're going to watch it for that. That's what I would say. And I mean, I do overall give this a thumbs up because I'm keeping in context what this movie is. This wasn't some mega budget project. These are all young people making this movie. They are only going to get better. And this is a solid start. I just don't feel it's a perfect movie. I don't feel it's a movie that I'm like absolutely goo goo gaga over because I have what I think are valid criticisms of it. But I do give it a thumbs up. I am positive on it. And for people who absolutely love this movie, I don't have any problem with doing so because there are strong and novel things that are done in Obsession. So there you go. That's my review.
All right. The review was almost as long as the movie.
Pretty close.
It was pretty close on there. Hey. This is AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. Get your questions answered. All you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. Come to our website. You can see our shows, show notes, links to any products or articles that we referenced during our videos, and a Flickr album that has all the pictures that people have sent us when they sent us their questions. So you can see them and understand it better than I can explain it to you. Sure. Sometimes I think sometimes I do an okay job, but a lot of times it's a little tough. Let's see here. You can contact you can facebook.com/AVRant podcast, youtube.com/AVRant. The pictures will be embedded in the video. There's just our recording. It's just two talking heads. So if you want to watch that,
it's a podcast recording. They're very common these days.
They are. We don't do as good a job of it because we're not in the same room, and we don't have a producer and a bunch of cameras and a bunch of lights.
That's for darn sure.
And for whatever reason, I don't understand how I don't know how all of these things happen. I mean, there's two people who clearly are just making stuff up. Like, they don't know what they're talking about, and they just are commenting on it. But somehow they have like the best production values I've ever seen. Like, what is your background? Who are you people, and why is it so good? Because I've been doing this for years, and our production value sucks. So that's just what it is.
Well, that's because I think it's fair to say I'm pretty much in charge of the quote unquote production value of the
talking
YouTube
about
recording.
Like video. Like, I'm still using my laptop camera right now. I don't know why I haven't bought one, but I haven't bought another one since the last one got flooded, but whatever.
I am just doing the bare minimum on StreamYard here, and that's what you get.
That's what you get.
You're here for the talking.
We're here for the talking. We did that already. Contact us directly, rob at avrant.com. Socials is at First Reflect. I'm Tom at avrant.com. We have listeners of the week. To become a listener of the week, support the podcast in some way. One of the ways you do that is going to avrant.com, clicking the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, and sending us a PayPal donation. This week we had two, but the second one came in like late last night. So we're going to mention that next week.
Yeah.
So if you don't hear your name, you're like, I sent something in. All right. Well, it's coming. Gotcha. Alan. So this week we have Alan. Went to avrant.com, clicked on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, and left us a PayPal donation. So thank you very much, Alan.
Yes, thank you, Alan, for the financial support. We very much appreciate it.
If you want to support us monthly, go to patreon.com/AVRant podcast. You can sign up to become a monthly contributor. We currently have 120 patrons over at patreon.com, and we want to thank each and every one of you.
Yes, once again, that is patreon.com/AVRant podcast. If you'd like to sign up to make an automatic monthly donations, a big thanks to our 120 patrons over there.
All right, got notes of
gratitude, my goodness.
We got notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going from Sasi, Karl, Dev, Bill, who watched The Sheep Detectives with his wife after hearing Rob's review and thought it was a lot of fun. He wanted to know if either of us has watched Spider Noir yet. Have we avoided talking about it because we saw it and didn't like it? I have not seen it.
We have not seen it.
It's out?
Oh, yeah. It's on Amazon Prime. It's the live action Nicolas Cage version of what was the character that was introduced in animated form in Into the Spider-Verse. Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. After Ghost Rider 2, I have like PTSD about Nicolas Cage. I'll be honest with you. I thought that movie was such a train wreck, and he was so insane in it.
Judging Nicolas Cage on that one movie? Wow.
I know. Wow. I know. The thing is like one of the most powerful scenes I've ever seen in the movie was also Nicolas Cage, which was like it was a 5mm or 4mm, whatever that.
8mm?
8mm, that's it. One of the millimeters. Yes. 8mm, and he's investigating this snuff film, which is the whole premise of the movie, and he leaves, and his wife says, "If you leave, I'm leaving, and I'm taking the baby with me. I'm out." And he leaves anyways because whatever, movies. And he leaves, and when he comes back, the house is dark. There's nobody there, and he looks into the crib. And that moment, his reaction in that moment affected me as deeply as almost any other movie ever has. That one moment is one of the most powerful, for me, most memorable moments in my movie watching history. And yet all I can see is him on that motorcycle making crazy faces and me going, ugh. God, this movie's a train wreck. Why am I watching this? So anyways, I have not seen it, no.
Okay. I haven't seen it, not for lack of interest. I fully intend to watch Spider Noir at some point. It's just, my goodness, the backlog.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tall Scott it says thank you for the pod, or notes of gratitude, whatever. He asks, or they ask, any chance that Clint might ever join the podcast as a guest? Might. Yeah, he doesn't really do much with AV anymore. Okay. His theater has not changed in well over a decade at this point. Okay. I think he got a new projector or maybe a new receiver. I don't really remember.
It'll be like riding a bike. I wouldn't mind having Clint on anytime.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that'd be great. And Ilango, who says, thanks for sharing Lee's visit to Vancouver. It's very nice to share his retelling. So we got notes of gratitude from Sasi, Karl, Dev, Bill, Tall Scott, and Ilango. Thank you for thanking us.
Yes, I'll say the names one more time so they came from my lips. We got Sasi, Karl, Dev, Bill, Tall Scott, and Ilango. Thank you all very much for the notes of gratitude and encouragement. They're very much appreciated. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
In the news, Dynaudio made their announcement that they are leaving the North American market altogether, which came as quite a surprise to many in the audio industry. Back in April of this year, Dynaudio had quite a visible showing of new and forthcoming products at Expona, with review units scheduled to be shipped out to North America reviewers right around now. Mm-hmm. But apparently at some time within the last few months, Dynaudio decided that instead it will close its 25,000 square foot North American headquarters in Illinois and cease commercial operations in North America altogether, with their future efforts focused on Europe and Asia. I have not read the rest of this, so I can only imagine what could possibly have spurred people to want to abandon the North American market.
There are a couple of key phrases coming up. You'll never be able to guess what they might be.
I'll never guess.
Yep.
Dynaudio is a Danish brand that was acquired by China's Gore-Tech back in 2014, but they have maintained their global headquarters in Denmark. Sales of Dynaudio products have actually been growing in North America, but their short statement cites economic challenges and market uncertainty as reasons for leaving North America. Tariffs? With their North American headquarters and all of U.S. subsidiaries closing in the fall of 2026. Dynaudio
nothing going on politically between Denmark and the U.S. or anything like that.
No.
Couldn't point at anything there.
Couldn't point any direction, any fingers in any direction at any specific person.
Or the U.S. and China, for that matter, if it's coming from the top.
I mean, yeah. Dynaudio said that continuity of product support and customer service will be addressed and communicated shortly. They're trying to wind up that middle finger. So at the moment, it's unclear how warranty and service claims will be handled. There's a Dynaudio Pro Service Center in Canada. Perhaps that will end up being the solution. Yeah, we don't hate Canada. There's a lot of North America, and only a bit of it is Canada. So.
This is rather unfortunate news, because Dynaudio was actually kind of growing in the North American market, so it is somewhat surprising. If they had talked about a restructuring, streamlining, anything along those lines, definitely could have seen that. But it's because they had these trade shows where they were bringing not just a lineup that had already been introduced in 2023 and they're just continuing it forward. It was no, these were new products. There was an entire new series of self-powered products that they introduced. These things were set to be coming out, and then seemingly out of the blue, they're just we are just not selling in North America anymore. We're out. And a big headquarters that they built in set up in Illinois, I think that was only 2019 when they did that. Yeah. So that is not a particularly long stay, and I don't see how that isn't a loss on the balance sheet, to set up a headquarters and then close it down a mere 7 years later, essentially. Yeah, so it was surprising news. I'm a little bit sad to see them going, but hey, those market uncertainties, it's just what can you do?
Yeah. So Criterion announced the Complete Kubrick, a 30-disc collection of all 13 of Stanley Kubrick's feature films, plus 3 short films, and over 25 hours of special features. I'll pay half price, and you can keep those 25 hours of special features. So I'm never going to watch them. In fact, I'm really never going to watch most of these movies. I have liked almost everything that I've watched of his. I haven't watched all of it, but very little of it have I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to watch this again. I'm just going to restart it. All of the features and shorts have been fully restored in 4K resolution. And on the audio side of things, there are new remastered 5.1 soundtracks for all features and shorts, but the original soundtracks are on the discs as well.
Good.
There are alternate cuts, new commentary tracks, screen tests, interviews, video essays, and deluxe packaging, which includes photographs and artwork. The Complete Kubrick. I don't understand why I'm having such a hard time with that name this morning. Will be available on October 20th. The list price is $600 bones. But the Criterion has pre-orders available for $480 on their website, so it's 20% off. Right? It's 20%
I think
off.
that's right.
Yeah.
Something like that. Anyway, yes. $480 is, interestingly, on Amazon, you can pre-order it for the entire $600 price. Amazon does always have the thing where if you pre-order and at some point, any point between now and when it is released, the price goes down, they will give you for whatever the lowest price was between pre-order time and release time. But yeah, if you want to be sure of getting it for less than $600, you can go right over to Criterion, their own website, and pre-order it for $480. So yes, if you're a big Stanley Kubrick fan, likely this will be the most complete collection that you're going to see for a long, long time. That's for sure. Criterion does do things right. They don't, half-ass things.
Yes. And if... I don't know. I just have such a... I'm at such a weird place in my life right now with where the kids are and what's going on with everything else, and with my wife and her schedule and my schedule and everything else that... It used to be I could find time to watch movies. I always could find the time to watch a movie every night. And I just can't anymore, and I don't understand why. I'm certainly in front of the TV long enough at night to watch a movie, but the thought of paying attention to a 2+ hour movie is just like, man, I'm not going to do that. I mean, every once in a while I will. But it's so strange. I don't know what's going on, and I'm sure there's other people that are in the same position where, like, I love home theater. I love this hobby. I love everything about it. But I'm spending most of my time watching YouTube. 2.0.
I don't think it'll be forever. We go through phases and ups and downs, and sometimes you go on a movie tear for some reason, and that doesn't last forever either. So yeah.
And we were I have a carbon fiber bike that I bought. It was like my first big bike, my first big boy bike. I had a chromoly. It's called a mixty or a mixed, depending on how you pronounce it. Bike. It was the first bike first 10-speed, road bike I bought. It was actually 9-speed, but it doesn't matter. And I rode that for a year before I got my carbon fiber bike, which I spent a couple of grand on. And then I started working at the bike shop and immediately did something to my bike that messed it up and made it hard. Made it hard to, I had to fix it. So I rode my boss's bike for about 1,000 miles, and then I finally got that back on the road slightly, which was a real pain.
Okay.
And then I got a titanium bike, and I rode that titanium. I've been riding that titanium bike. Well, this last week, maybe a week and a half, I finally fixed up my carbon bike again and got it back on the road, and I rode it. I've ridden it exactly once now. And then I was talking to my boss about it, and I was like, man, which bike have I ridden more, do you think? He goes, man, that titanium bike, you've been riding that for years now. Because I've got so many more miles in the carbon bike. Like, it's like 50% more. Like, I think I have 8,000 miles on the titanium and almost 12,000 on the carbon. And he's like, but you didn't ride it for as long. I'm like, yeah, but I rode it a lot. And that's kind of the way I feel about home theater. Like, I'm like, right now I'm in this weird lull where I can't find the motivation or the time to do anything. But once I get back into it, I think it's going to be full on, and maybe I'll get my overhead speakers working.
Ebb and flow, and that is all right.
Yeah. Let's get to some questions here. Ari has a 7.2.4 speaker system. The front 3 speakers are ELAC Unify reference towers with a matching center, and they are powered by an Emotiva XP-A3 amp connected to a Marantz Cinema 50 receiver. All of those items were purchased within the last 2 years. Ari rarely plays his system louder than 80 dB. He has dialed in the response to his liking using Odyssey. Only recently did he try turning on Odyssey Dynamic EQ to hear what the effect would have that would have on his lower listening levels. Well, while Ari was out, his son was playing something on the speaker system, and he managed to blow up the front right speaker. Smoke was literally coming out of that speaker, but his son swears he's only playing something for not that long and not that loud. Lies. I have sons. It's okay. They're lies. They're lies. The son was playing something that wasn't that loud because he was literally an entire house away. He was in another room vacuuming, and he wanted to be able to hear the music still, so he kept turning it up until he could hear the music over the vacuum cleaner in a room across the house. It's okay. It's okay. So Ari wasn't there, so doesn't exactly know what the situation really was. He took the busted speaker to a local hi-fi shop. According to them, more than one capacitor in the speaker's crossover had literally exploded. My lord. They replaced the entire crossover and both the mid-range driver and the tweeter, but not the bass woofers. They also made him never want to come back because they couldn't stop themselves from commenting that every component he owns is worthless and they ought to toss all of it and buy all new equipment. From them, of course. But when he asked about Odyssey, they acted like that was the problem, and of course said that he should only ever use Pure Direct. What a load of garbage! And we're gonna tell you why in just a second. So he doesn't put much stock in anything they told him, but on the flip side, he truly does not know what actually caused this catastrophic failure. Your son. Your son did.
Okay, but on a technical level.
He suspects that his son's description of not that loud is probably generous, but regardless of whatever the playback level actually was, why was this even possible? Shouldn't the amplifier or the receiver both have shut off before feeding the speaker so much power that they literally exploded more than one capacitor in the crossover? He just wants to make sure this is never going to happen again. Take the remote with you. So he's hoping we can explain and let him know whether a dynamic EQ or any other settings that might have generally played a role in the speaker damage. Okay. Dynamic EQ, what does it do? Okay, this is the key. To start with this thing. Okay. Dynamic EQ, as you move down from reference volume, that's 0 dB on your volume dial, in theory, if you've EQ'd everything flat. 0 dB. Okay, when you are at 0 dB on your volume dial, you experience bass at a certain level relative to all the other frequencies, right? It sounds a certain amount of loud if, compared to the treble and the mid-range.
Yeah.
All right. As you lower the volume down, listen to that word. As you lower the volume down, bass becomes less hearable, less noticeable in relative to the other frequencies faster as you go down in volume. You cannot hear the bass as well. Has to do with your ears, has to do with a lot of other things, psychoacoustics. Don't worry about it.
Our human hearing is not linear, so all of the sounds themselves, as you turn down the master volume dial, the sounds themselves are getting equally quieter.
Equally softer.
But we don't hear it that way. We have non-linear hearing, and we are much better at hearing mid-range human vocal frequencies. We're very good at hearing those, even when they're very quiet. But deep bass in particular has to be pretty darn loud for us to even clock that we're hearing it whatsoever. There is a threshold of audibility, and for deep bass, that threshold of audibility is pretty high. It's up in like 65, 70 dB for us to even notice that the notes exist.
So, as you lower the volume, dynamic EQ, what it does is using curves of equal loudness, okay, which is the way it came about, there's a lot of different methods for coming out with your different curves. But generally speaking, Odyssey, when they first did it, they got a bunch of DJs and audio engineers and people who are very familiar with how music should sound. And as they lowered the volume, of the music, they had them adjust sliders, essentially, to make the bass sound the way it should at that volume level. And they did that with a bunch of different people, kind of took the averages and came up with their curves of equal loudness. But there's other ways to come about doing these things, right? So this is one of the things that they did. And so that as the volume comes down, the dynamic EQ essentially boosts the bass so that subjectively the bass sounds equal in volume to the mid-range and the treble, so that because your hearing is nonlinear, as Rob described, you're experiencing the bass at the same volume, subjective volume, as the other frequencies as you lower the volume. But that's lowering from reference level. Reference level isn't going to cause capacitors to fail. It just isn't. I mean, It can't. Generally speaking, unless you put your measurement microphone like 20 feet away or something like that, or at least over 12, you're not going to be blowing up capacitors that way. So if you go above 0 dB, which is almost certainly what your son had to do in order to blow these things up, I want to speak a little bit more about that, but let's just stay there.
Comment on that too. Yep.
Yeah. As you go above 0 dB, what does dynamic EQ do? Nothing. It does nothing. So dynamic EQ does not adjust the bass up anymore as you go above 0 dB. So can dynamic EQ damage your speakers? I mean, I don't see how. I really don't.
There's like a theoretical scenario. If you did everything just perfectly wrong intentionally, then okay, maybe. But
it would have to be like real close to 0 dB because you measured it so far away. I just don't see it would be. It would be also very unusual.
The bass drivers in his speakers are not what went wrong.
I know, it's weird, right?
It was the higher frequencies.
I have sons, so I am quick to throw them under the bus because they have it coming. No offense, I love my kids, I love my boys, but when they do something wrong, they have a real hard time admitting it, and they will lie, exaggerate in their favor, however you want to call it, in order to do that. But is it theoretically possible that your son didn't play it that loud, and you had a catastrophic failure with your capacitors that took out your mid-range driver and your tweeter because of a power surge, because of just one of the capacitors was manufactured poorly or something, and it just failed, and all of this went wrong because of it? I'm sure that there's an electrician or electrical engineer out there who could describe how this could happen and it not be your son's fault. But Occam's razor, the simplest solution is usually the right one. Chances are it was your son. And you know what? He learned a lesson. It's fine.
There is a scenario here, though, because I want to talk about what could actually cause this. What could actually cause capacitors in a crossover to essentially explode, to burst. Literal smoke coming out of the speakers. That was coming out of the capacitors. And then why didn't the amplifier or the AV receiver, it wouldn't trip a protection circuit. A lot of people misunderstand the protection circuit. Protection circuit is strictly for a short circuit. That's what it's for. It's not there to protect your speakers. It's well, I mean, in a way it is, but it's strictly there to protect the amplifier more than anything, the actual protection circuit from and going into protection mode from a short circuit, something shorting across the binding posts, whether that's inside or outside of the chassis. That's what the protection mode does. But this type of protection that virtually every AV receiver and amplifier has for what could cause this type of damage is called soft clipping. Clipping of the signal is what will cause a capacitor in the crossover to burst. It is what will cause a tweeter to explode, to bust up. It's clipping in the signal. And what that is if we're looking at a graph of the frequency response of the whatever it is you're playing, the music or movie, whatever it is you're playing, it's a line going up and down. It's a sine wave line, a combination of sine waves forming a complex wave. But if that exceeds the output capability of the amplifier, not of the speakers, if it exceeds the output capability of the amplifier, then you won't have a smooth up and down wave anymore. It'll literally go up, and then it's as if the graph got sliced off in a flat horizontal line, and you have a tabletop flat part of the signal. You can imagine exactly how the line would have extended up above that line and curved smoothly and come back down. But the line amplitude is so great that it has exceeded the output capabilities, and you have this chopped off tabletop in the signal, and that is literal clipping of the signal. That's where the name came from. It's like you clipped it off with a pair of shears going across like a hedge. That's what you would see in the graph of the signal. Now, AV receivers and amplifiers, they sometimes get signal values that would clip, and they have a circuitry in them called soft clipping, and the idea is that it just kind of clamps everything down so that you don't blow up a tweeter and you don't blow up a capacitor in your crossover. And you might be thinking, okay, so how come that didn't protect my speakers? So, I mean, there are a couple of things that can happen. There can be just momentary catastrophic clipping that the soft clipping can't overcome. It isn't literally instantaneous circuitry. It is a buffer filter that is in there. And you could have something that is so darn loud that the single waveform going through the circuitry makes it all the way through and it blows something up.
I've had that happen before when I played a
sweep
I played a test
way
tone.
too loud.
Yeah. I played a test tone, and it may have been. I think it was a sweep actually.
Yeah,
and
like
it was.
sweep.
It was from a CD or something.
Yeah.
And it went, and I was like, as it started, I was like, oh, that is way too loud.
Yes.
And I grabbed the remote and I tried to turn the volume down, but it got to the top before I could turn it down enough, and it just popped. You could hear it pop. I was like, there goes the tweeter.
And there it goes.
It.
So that is definitely a possibility. There's another one, though, which is, what if the clipping is in the recording?
Yeah.
Your equipment is doing nothing wrong, and it isn't technically exceeding like where the signal is. It's not the type of clipping where you turn the volume up too high and now the signal has been amplified beyond the capabilities of your equipment. What if you recorded or generated a clipped signal and played that back? That can do it. You have to play it pretty loud, but that can do it. And unfortunately, like, we don't know what your son was watching. He wasn't necessarily playing music. Now, there is music that has a ton of intentional clipping in it these days. But there's also, like, look at all the stupid TikToks and YouTube videos where it's people screaming into their microphone, spiking the mic, as they call it, and they are intentionally clipping it, and that is just part of the recording. It sounds horrible. It sounds all distorted and terrible. And if you take that signal and you play it loud... Now, your son might not be lying. He might not have turned it up past 0. He just might have been playing something. I mean, he was playing it loud. There's no scenario where he wasn't playing it loud.
No,
but
that's true.
When he says, I didn't literally turn the volume dial all the way up as high as it goes, he might not be lying about that. He might be absolutely telling the truth about that. But he might have been playing something that had clipping in the signal itself. If you play that relatively quietly, it is not going to damage your speaker physically. But if you play it pretty loud, then it absolutely can. And to me, that's actually the most likely scenario. Like,
I think so too. Yeah,
given what a lot of people are listening to, if it's just in the signal itself. So, unfortunately, like, what can you really do about that? Well, you're talking about a receiver that has Odyssey, and it is probably a Den and a Marantz. Those actually do have in the audio settings, you can set a limit. You can set a maximum volume limit where you can turn the volume up that high and no higher. So, I mean, that's one thing you could do. But if it is the scenario where even at 0 dB on the volume dial, which is probably the limit I would set it to, because I want to be able to at least get to reference volume, maybe not any higher than that, you could do that. But if it's in the signal itself and you play it back at 0 dB, there's a chance you could still blow a speaker with that. So you have to be a little bit careful about the content that you're playing. Unfortunately, we shouldn't be. Right? Anything that's mastered properly, anything that's mastered professionally will not have that type of thing in it. But I mean, if you're just playing YouTube videos or TikToks or something like that, those aren't professionally mastered, and they can absolutely have clipping in the signal itself.
I would sit down and have a conversation with your son about it too, because that's a very good conversation to have. To describe what clipping is, and to let him know, hey, you had no idea that this could potentially be it. Yeah. First of all, it gives him an out. It gives him an out, and so that he can, if you approach him with that instead of approaching with how loud did you play it? I didn't play it that loud. It gives him an out, and not only that, we have talked so many times on this podcast about how switching from app to app, the volume levels can be wildly different.
Definitely.
Like when I am watching Daredevil Born Again, I am at like -10, -12. Yeah. And I've got it all the way up to 0 before when I was home alone and I was watching something I wanted to watch it a little bit loud. When I'm watching YouTube, I'm at -38.
Exactly, yes. And look, if your son was watching Netflix and then switched to YouTube...
Yes.
I'm not going to be like, oh, he was a horrible person for not knowing that he should turn the volume down 30 dB before he started watching it. Like,
who would think that?
Yeah, exactly. Especially like it's all on the same device. Maybe it was the TV's built-in apps, for goodness sake. It absolutely could have been. I'm not going to say somebody was a terrible, negligent person for doing that. So yes, there are multiple ways that this could have happened without it being your son's fault whatsoever. But you know what? In a way, like as a total aside, I wouldn't necessarily be that mad if Netflix really got popular for short form video, because Netflix does a really good job of making sure everything on their service is properly mastered. Like they don't let stuff slide through that isn't properly mastered. So I'm like, oh, you know what? Wouldn't be the worst if we
the first episode of Suits, I'm pretty sure is it Suits or one of the other ones where it's like mono out of like the right front right speaker.
But I mean, as far as levels go, as far as normalization and stuff like that goes. So yeah.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the hi-fi shop here just for a moment, because as somebody who works in a bike shop, it's the same sort of situation where people bring in their broken equipment and they ask to get it fixed, and then we often have to give them recommendations based on what we know about equipment and that sort of thing. So the big thing that I have started doing, and not started, but I've been doing for a very long time, we do as a shop, is the first step is to feel out from the customer how much do they like their equipment. In this case, it's a bicycle. But in your case, it's your speakers. How much do you like these things? Okay. Because I've had people come in and easily drop hundreds of dollars on a bike that if you gave it to me, I would throw it away.
Okay.
Like you would have to pay me to take this bike. Like that's how bad this bike to me is. It's an old bike. It's not very good condition to begin with. It wasn't a very good bike to begin with. Like from day one, it wasn't a very good bike. It was, it's fine. Whatever. So people come in with these bikes, and step one, a lot of the time I'm like, how much do you ride this bike? And I go, I ride it all the time. Okay, then. So you love this bike. Oh, yeah, I love this bike. This bike fits me perfectly, blah, blah, blah. That is where this hi-fi shop has gone wrong. Okay? Because that's the questions they should have asked you about your speakers. How much you like, the Unify speakers, how do you like them? How do they sound? Oh, they sound great. I've only had them for a couple of years. I have them all the time, blah, blah, blah. That's it. There's no longer selling you things. Let's just talk about how to fix it. Now, if you came in and you're like, I just got these things, they immediately blew up. I don't know. I'm kind of regretting my purchase, blah, blah, blah. That's when you're like, well, let's talk about options. Because many times with people, what I'm like, this is how, I'm trying to figure out how much you like your stuff because it's going to cost money to fix. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that money is more than replacement costs.
Right.
You can buy another one of the same quality.
Oh no, you can imagine the sort of hi-fi shop that this was, because ELAC and Denon or Rant and Emotiva. Oh my goodness, this is all.
So there are many bike shops that are the same way. Their whole thing is to be elitist,
absolutely,
and awful, and people like that. I guess because they keep going there, and I don't understand why. Yeah. Like there's a bike shop in town that, like, all of the people that I cycle with, they go to this one bike shop, and I'm like, they're not good. Yeah. They don't, like, you put your bike in there for a flat tire, and it comes back with a $300 bill, and you got new shifters, and everybody, they found there was a problem with the brake lever, so they had to replace the brake lever. I'm like, no, they didn't. No, they didn't. I mean, I can fix it. I could fix that brake. I assure you, the number of brake levers I've had to replace is so few over the last 3 or 4 years that I've worked there. They replace them daily. I'm like, I need to go through their garbage and just and pull out all
tons
the
of
really
good parts in there.
Good parts that are in there. So I understand your frustration with this particular hi-fi shop, and I don't know if there's a good one in your town, but some people, and there are a lot of them out there, want people to make them feel like they are part of the elite, and the way they do that is by putting down everything, and then when they buy something from them, they're like, oh, hell yeah, this is great stuff. I don't understand it. I think that you should, the fact that you went there to go spend money, I think is fine. I hope they did a good job doing the work. I'm sure that that's fine too.
I mean, it sounds like they just replaced parts, so that should be
hopefully you have a better experience in the future. But I really rail against that kind of customer experience,
of course,
because it really bothers me to have people walk away and say, I had a bad experience at this place because they talked down to me. I don't think there's any reason to do that. Henry, Along with the news that we covered last week from Sony about no longer releasing any new PlayStation games on physical discs starting in 2028, there were also the reports that Sony's optical disc factory in Austria, Sony's only remaining wholly owned disc factory after closing their New Jersey factory back in 2011 and transitioning their Indiana factory to assembling headlights instead of discs back in 2022. The Austria factory is transitioning into making micro lenses.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So half of the 600,000 optical discs that the Austria factory made every day were PlayStation games, but the other half were movie discs. And all of that is going away entirely in 2028. That can't mean anything good for Blu-ray and Ultra HD Blu-ray movie market, right? While boutique labels like Criterion and Arrow might continue to put out physical discs, and a boutique brand like Magnetar, I hope I'm saying that right, might continue to sell Ultra HD Blu-ray players, do we agree with him that the writing appears to be on the wall for Blu-ray and Ultra HD Blu-ray as a mass market format? I mean, I think we've been saying that for years.
Yeah.
Like nothing has ever come close to the popularity of DVDs.
Yeah, no. And I mean, it never did.
No.
DVD has always been the sales leader. Blu-ray never caught up to it. Ultra HD Blu-ray is a drop in the bucket compared to it.
I think on top of the fact that all the discs look exactly the same and all the discs are backwards compatible with DVD. The reality that we didn't go to a new type, because we went to VHS to disc, right? And that was a big change in, whatever.
Huge.
I believe that there are many Ultra HD Blu-ray players and Blu-ray players out there that have never seen an Ultra HD Blu-ray or a Blu-ray. The people go to the store and they see a line of, Fast and the Furious 6 or 8 or 10 or whatever one they're on right now, and they see a $30 one for the Ultra HD Blu-ray, a $25 one for the Blu-ray, and then a $19.99 one for the DVD, and they're like, I'm going to get the cheap one, and they buy that. And they've never, ever actually put
it plays.
a
It's
Blu-ray
not as though you
into
don't get image and sound on your system.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And they're watching on the TV speakers anyway.
Yes, in vivid mode.
Yeah. So yes, discs unfortunately have always been on the way out ever since DVD. We needed a new format, a new container to get people to realize that it's different and better, and people don't realize that.
Yeah, it's been years since any brand other than, I guess, Magnetar has introduced a new Ultra HD Blu-ray player model. Technically, there was a revision to the Sony X700, but it was actually to take features out of the X700. So, whether you really, it's
no
hard
one's
to call
using
that
this anyways.
Hard to call that a new model. I mean, Ultra HD Blu-ray is. I mean, it's hard to say not long for this world. I'm going to link to a couple of articles that were over on Flat Panels because they're very much on the side of hoping that physical media does continue. So they had sort of a retrospective of Blu-ray itself turning 20 years old and Ultra HD Blu-ray having turned 10 years old, and then they wrote about this exact optical disc plant transition, this Sony plant in Austria. They wrote about that and their take on what the broader consequences are going to be for that. So, I mean, it's hard to say not long for this world because I genuinely believe that Blu-rays and Ultra HD Blu-rays are going to continue for maybe even longer than we might imagine.
I think so too.
These were not literally the only factories that are out there.
I honestly believe that online ordering from like Amazon and other places is going to extend the life of Blu-rays and Ultra HD Blu-rays far past where they would have been if they needed to be on store shelves.
Right.
Because store shelf, there's almost nothing left. I go to Walmart, you can't find one. It's crazy.
But I mean, so it's a weird thing because I think there are going to be more and more movies every year going forward where you might wish there was an Ultra HD version, Ultra HD Blu-ray release of it, and there isn't. right? I think there are going to be more and more, not the least of which is because we're getting more and more movies where the studio behind that movie is Netflix or it's Amazon or it's Apple, right? And they are reticent to put their movies that they paid the money to produce out on physical disc. One of the reasons they think they're going to make money on that thing in the long run is that it's going to be part of their online streaming catalog. So for those types of reasons, I don't foresee Ultra HD Blu-ray as being the format that's going to have everything. I think it is going to move more and more towards being boutique, but I don't think it's going to go away for quite a while yet.
Yeah, I agree with that. Sasi. First up, Sasi just wanted to say he appreciated our discussion about his friend's setup where he wanted to add front wide in-wall speakers that would be flush with the wall. It's true that there's no changing his friend's mind, but at least his Anthem AVM 90 Pre-Pro should be able to upmix sounds into the front wide channels using its Dolby Surround upmixer implementation, correct?
Yeah, I have not actually done that for myself, but the information that I have been told by some Anthem owners is that, yes, their Dolby Surround upmixer implementation does, in fact, put sounds into the front wide. So, yes, fingers crossed that works.
So also, Sasi once told his same friend that he should wire his 2 pair of side surround speakers in series, since wiring them in parallel sent his Emotiva amps into protection mode a couple of times. What with a pair of speakers on each side dipping as low as 1.7 ohms. But he just saw it as a great excuse to buy more amplifiers instead. All right, whatever. So back to Sasi's own home theater. He to make a couple of more acoustic absorption panels to add to the back of his room. He used to buy Rockwool from a local supplier, but for some reason Rockwool brand insulation is unavailable from any local places close to where Sasi lives now, so he's looking for an alternative. I mean, with the Owens Corning 703
well, that's
or
going to come up.
Yeah. There are fiberglass insulation options, of course, but the panels he wants to make will be a custom size, and he's read about people having skin irritation or worse, breathing in some fibers. Those people are a bunch of liars. After cutting fiberglass bats, so he'd rather stick with Rockwool if possible. I would not care about that one iota.
I mean, I will say if I'm going to be handling and cutting fiberglass insulation, I would wear a pair of gloves and some long sleeves. I'd put on some long sleeves.
I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Long sleeves and just like regular nitrite gloves.
Oh, yeah.
Like you don't have to go crazy.
Heck, dish gloves can do the trick.
Yes, dish gloves are even better, I would say, because they're easier to get on and off,
and
a little bit sturdier.
I would probably take the precaution of just putting on like a very basic mask, like the type of mask you might use when you go to cut the lawn, you can get little fiberglass fibers. They're not actually physically dangerous to you.
No.
They're not carcinogenic or anything like that, but they can be an irritant.
So those people that are worried about fiberglass, what they're really... It comes down to asbestos. They still have that in their mind. So let's just briefly cover this. Yeah. Asbestos. The problem with asbestos is that each of the little fibers has a hook shape. So when you breathe it in, it gets into your lungs, it hooks into your lung tissue and stays. You cannot get rid of it. Very, very tiny. You cannot get rid of it. And this causes, irritation in your lungs and eventually cancer and a bunch of other stuff, right? It's bad for you. Fiberglass is not that way.
If
you breathe it in, okay, it does not stay in your lungs. Yes, it can cause irritation. Yeah. Yes, it can do stuff. Yes, you should wear respirators around them. But ask anybody that actually works with fiberglass insulation. Most of them don't have any concerns about the things that all these people in the AV industry seem to think are endemic to touching fiberglass. I am very sensitive to fiberglass. I don't like touching it. I always wear gloves. I do wear long sleeves. If I have not worn gloves or long sleeves and I do have some skin irritation, it looks like little bumps. Never once have I had any problems with breathing or any sort of noticing anything with my lungs, even in those situations where I've made multiple panels all at the same time. Never wore a mask, never wore a respirator. I'm not saying that's what you should do. I'm saying that's what I did because it was many years ago and I was younger and stupider. But the irritation went away in hours, not days or years or whatever, and on my skin. It just went away very quickly. I would have no problem suggesting that you could use fiberglass safely. It's not a problem.
Yeah,
it's
you can absolutely use it safely. That said, like if I'm making panels, I prefer Rockwool.
I do too.
I find it that little bit easier to work with. I find it that little bit easier to cut. A bread knife works amazingly well cutting Rockwool. So, I find it that little bit easier and a little bit nicer. So I prefer it.
Yeah, fine. So he found one place near him selling Thermafiber. The supplier told him it's a 1-for-1 alternative to Rockwool, and it's just a mineral wool insulation by a different brand name. Mm-hmm. So Sasi wanted to ask us, any reason to avoid it? The supplier only had standard Thermafiber bats that are 3 inches thick, and Sasi wanted to make 6-inch thick panels anyway, so that would be easy to just double up. Mm-hmm. He did notice that these Thermafiber bats mention sound attenuation, but the Rockwool brand specifically has their safe and sound version. Will these Thermafiber bats be just as good when used for acoustic panels? And he also noticed the standard Thermafiber bats do contain some formaldehyde. They specifically have a formaldehyde-free version, but that local supplier doesn't stock that. Should he have any concerns about that? Man, just get the fiberglass.
Oh. I mean, I'm going to say the Thermafiber that you found is absolutely fine.
I mean, it's like we can worry about everything, right? Is what it comes down to. But I mean, if you're already, there's scary words in the world, and formaldehyde is one of them, right? People are like, "Oh my god, okay, so don't drink it or eat it, and you'll be fine." I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Actually, honestly, if you did, you'd probably be fine because
fine as well.
The formaldehyde that's in mineral wool insulation, there's a little bit of a resin that's in mineral wool insulation bats. It's just used as a binder and very often to slightly stiffen the edges and corners, just a little bit. So there's a little bit of resin that's in there, and that's what contains the formaldehyde. It's a trace amount. You can, if it's just out in the open, like these will be, because these aren't going to be installed inside of your walls. There will be a little bit of off-gassing. You might get a little bit of a whiff of it. So I guess don't put it into a greenhouse and seal yourself in there and constantly pump that air, recirculate it for, days on end. It isn't recommended to use any formaldehyde-containing insulation, regardless of what the material is, to line the inside of an air return or a air supply duct. You have particular insulation that is formaldehyde-free for lining the inside of air ducts, but that's not what you're doing. But I mean, it is a good thing to address. Should we be concerned about this thing? Yes, formaldehyde in fairly large quantities is a dangerous thing. But yeah, we are talking trace amounts here. It is possible to smell the little bit of off-gassing that will occur, but there's really no danger about it. So there's no reason to specifically look for formaldehyde-free because these are not going inside of an air return or an air duct in your case. And the Thermafiber is absolutely fine. It literally is just mineral fiber by a different name. And if you're wondering about the different versions that you can get, very often those are just different thicknesses and or different densities. And as far as using it as an acoustic absorber, it makes shockingly little difference what the density of fibrous insulation is. You can use the very loose fill, the stuff we've talked about, the cheapest white is meant to go above your garage and just take up airspace. That is very loose, very not dense, low density, but fibrous insulation. And it works just as well as the quite dense fibrous insulation.
Yeah, the reason we get the dense stuff is because it's easier to work with as far as an install into a panel. Yeah, that's the real reason why you use it. The loose stuff wants to kind of fall down and compress, and it's harder to get to stay in the panel and everything else. So yeah, there's a reason to use the denser stuff, but it's not acoustic.
So if the Thermafiber doesn't cost particularly more than the decent fiberglass insulation to work with, the stuff that isn't going to just easily fall down and squish under gravity, get a little bit stiffer than that. If they're close in price and you just prefer working with the Rockwool, as I do with the mineral wool, I have a preference for it. As long as the price makes sense, then the Thermafiber is totally fine to buy.
I'll be honest with you. I feel like I have just as much irritation on my skin from Rockwool as I did from fiberglass.
I'd still wear gloves when working with the Rockwool, that's for sure.
I mean, I don't. I know it says, "Oh, you're not." It's supposed to never not irritate your skin, but it does irritate mine, and that might be psychosomatic. Might be. I don't know, but it does feel that way.
It's a fiber.
I'm always itchy afterwards. Bill. If we go chronologically, we'll get to start with some good news. So, a while back, Bill wrote in to ask which center speaker he should buy to replace the small Sony center that he was using. And if you're looking at the pictures on the YouTube video or on the Flickr album, you can see that small is exactly the right word to use when referencing this speaker. The Sony had come from a 5-speaker package, but it fit in the narrow space between his fireplace mantle and the bottom of his TV, so he had put up with it until recently. It was one of the weeks when Lee was filling in for Tom, so Rob and Lee provided a list of options, including some speaker models that were just ever so slightly too tall for the narrow space below the TV. So move it up a little bit. Rob mentioned how, without having to change the part of the TV mount that is actually secured to the wall, it is often possible to adjust the brackets on the back of the TV to gain a little bit of extra height. And out of the list of speaker options, Rob strongly favored the RSL CG23M. So Bill checked, and our advice was spot on. Without much trouble, he was able to raise the height of the TV just by an inch or so, which was all he needed. And since the RSL offers a white finish option, he went with that so it would blend nicely with the top of the fireplace mantle. With the Sony speaker no longer needed, he decided to satisfy his curiosity and finally take a look at the drivers it uses. The speaker had a non-removable grill, but anything is removable if you try hard enough, basically.
Yes.
So you'll see pictures of this. It is removed. It is also rusty, weirdly.
Oh, no.
Love that. Maybe that's glue.
Is the screw rusty? I can't quite tell. But
I don't know.
No, that's just like the particle board that this thing is made out of.
Oh, is that what it is? Yeah. Okay. So the unimpressive pair of 2.5-inch full-range drivers and a little cardboard port explain why Sony didn't want anybody taking the front grill cover off. Yeah. Well, they didn't want you to take it off because having it removable costs money. With the new RSL center in place, which you can see in this next picture here that Rob's probably showing, he was very happy with the sound. Bill and his wife had been struggling to understand dialogue, but now it's much better. Constant sounds are much consonant. Is that what that says?
Yes, consonant, yes.
Consonant sounds are much clearer. His only nitpick is that the white finish makes the slot ports on the front of his RSL speakers more noticeable and visible, but he's... I'm sorry. There's a slot port on this speaker?
There are slot ports on the on either side, left and right of the gray grill there. There's
I can't see that.
Little black slot ports.
So the RSL speaker, the center speaker, has slot ports on it, but he's definitely happy with the suggestion we gave. But now on to the bad news, which leads to his questions. He had a lightning strike right near his house, and a bunch of electronic devices got fried. His porch lights, his garage door opener were casualties, as were his TV, TiVo. Oh, God. Can't replace that. Roku modem and router. He's crossed his fingers that it was just a power supply that in his PC that took the hit, but his PC died as well. And in his home theater setup, his 55-inch Samsung TV, Panasonic Blu-ray player, and Denon X1700H receiver all died. Insurance will pay for replacement, so he figured to run it by us to maybe get a couple of suggestions. He figures he'll just replace the Denon with another Denon if the older X1700H model isn't available. Any reason the 1800H wouldn't slot right in. As far as size-wise...
They're the same.
Yes, it should slot right in.
Function-wise?
The only thing I'm going to let Rob, I need to get some more coffee. Okay. I'm going to let Rob go ahead and start answering these questions because there's more than one of these pieces of equipment here. And I did not do any research on them because I didn't read this question until just now. That being said, so when somebody says I need to replace my receiver with another device, or I need to replace a device with another device because my old device died, what should I be looking for? With the receiver in particular, you're looking for the number and type of connections. Okay, so you can always upgrade, right? But sometimes, especially in receivers nowadays, if you have an older receiver, and 1700 is not that old, but if you have an older receiver, you may have connections that no longer exist on the back of the receiver. Okay, and if that is the case, then you need to be very careful about what you upgrade to. That you're not going to make it so that you need now a new device to do some sort of conversion from the connections of your old device to your new device. You also have to worry about the number of connections. Like I said type, but also number of connections. And then with other devices that you might have that are out there, there's quite a few things that can play a similar role. If you are replacing, let's say, you're like, my VHS died in this thing. Well, VHS have very specific types of connections that you can no longer find on the back of any of your receivers. Not only that, you might not be able to find a VHS player anymore. So there's a lot of things to consider along those lines. But for receivers in particular, what you're really looking for is making sure you have the right types of connections and numbers of connections. We've seen that receivers sometimes go from, they have one composite, one component, and 4 HDMI inputs or something like that. And then the next one comes out and they get rid of all the component and composite connections, and they have 3 HDMI inputs. You're like, what? Where are all the inputs? And because they no longer, for whatever reason, think that you need those things, or it costs more. The boards don't support them that come out. So be careful of that. That's the thing I would say. Go ahead, Rob.
Okay. Well, yeah, from the X1700H to the X1800H, about the only difference is, actually, yes, they did remove some inputs on the X1800H, which were the yellow composite video inputs. But the X1700H, all it had were 2 composite yellow video inputs in and a single out, and the X1700H was not up converting composite video signals to HDMI, so it really was just a 2-in, 1-out composite video switch contained within the X1700H, which the X1800H completely did away with. Other than that, the X1800H updated to a newer specification version of Bluetooth support. That's about it. So I don't foresee that you were using the X1700H's composite video, because normally what we want now is, if it has a composite video in, we want it to upconvert to HDMI and make things more convenient, and the 1700 wasn't even doing that. So other than that, the 1800H is darn near identical, and it would slot right in, so that would be a great choice. So next up, his Panasonic Blu-ray player. It was a Blu-ray player, not an Ultra HD Blu-ray player, and he picked it up for $90 back in the day. So any suggestions for what he should get to replace it? So, the thing is, you do, and you will have an up-to-date television, that can definitely do 4K and HDR. I think it might be kind of nice to get an Ultra HD Blu-ray player. Even if you never buy any Ultra HD Blu-rays, just, to have the capability, but that would mean spending more than $90. So the one I'm going to point you to is... technically, it's the newest Panasonic Ultra HD Blu-ray player. It's also the least expensive. It is the UB154 model, so it is at the very bottom of their lineup. It is $240, so you might have to kick in a little bit extra beyond what your insurance is going to pay if they really will only cover the original cost. But I think it's kind of worth it. This one does not support Dolby Vision, but it does support HDR10 and HDR10 Plus. There's not much reason to go beyond the least expensive of the Panasonic Ultra HD Blu-ray players for $240. So that's the one I would point you to, the UB154 from Panasonic. Tom is back.
So for TVs, he's hoping to keep the price to $500 or less, which, by the way, is the same price everybody wants to pay for a TV.
Yep.
I don't know anybody that wants to spend more than $500 on a TV.
You can get a darn good TV for $500.
These
so
days,
that's not
you
so
can.
bad.
It's the same thing in the bike industry. Everybody wants to spend $100 on a bike.
There you go.
And you can find a decent used bike for $100, but it's hard. Anyways, he had a 55-inch Samsung QLED. Is there a 65-inch option that we would recommend that would fit the $500 budget? And if going a little over $500 is super duper worth it, he'd be okay with that too. Just make sure, because remember, you're going to go bigger TV, and you've already had the problem with the amount of space above your mantle. 65 inches is a lot bigger than 55 inches.
It is noticeable for sure.
Yeah. So, you might find yourself right back in the same situation where, I need a new center channel because it doesn't fit anymore. So just be careful of that.
Because
be ready to remove the mount. because that's the other option.
Right. Yeah. The bottom edge of this TV is going to be exactly where the bottom edge of your current TV is, the one that unfortunately fried from the lightning strike. So it is only going to go up the wall. It is only the top edge is only going to be higher when you move up to the 65-inch. But yes, I have an option that, technically it is over $500, but we're talking $530, and it is super duper worth it to spend the extra $30. Also, you'll want to hop on this rather quickly because we are talking about a model that came out in 2025, but that's how you get the good deal on a TCL QM6K. If you want to get a 65-inch TV for right around $500, in this case $530, as they are clearing them out now that the new QM6Ls have come into stock. This is one that I would be very, very okay getting. Now, is it the pinnacle of televisions? No, because it's a 65-inch TV for just over $500. It is not the pinnacle of TVs that exist, but I would be very satisfied going for the larger size and pretty darn good image quality. This does have full array local dimming, not the maximum number of zones, because we're talking about, a 65-inch TV for $530. But, it is mini LEDs.
Compromises were made. That's all.
Yes, some compromises were made, but it is a very reasonable TV. I will mention, like, the QM7K is, like, really, really superb value. It is, like, more local dimming zones. It's brighter. It's all of the things that you might expect. But you would definitely have to go down to the 55-inch size in the QM7K lineup, and that is $600 for the 55-inch. And then the 65-inch is $800. So there's a pretty big price delta between the QM6K and the QM7K, even on the clearance prices. I'll mention those because if you are saying, I want very little blooming. The QM6K, you're going to see some blooming from time to time, especially if you use subtitles. You're going to see some blooms around those subtitles. That's what happens when you have fewer local dimming zones. It's just, par for the course. But overall, compared to the TV that you're upgrading from, the Samsung that you're upgrading from, this TCL QM6K is quite the upgrade. So, I'd feel very comfortable recommending that one to you.
All right. Greg's son is going... Okay, talking. Greg's son is going to his senior year of high school. He's looking to get rid of the stuffed animals and other plush toys he had as a kid. Greg cannot stress enough the absolute ridiculous number of plush toys we were talking about here. Hey, man, whatever brings you joy. That's what I say. I try not to yuck other people's yums, no matter how much it doesn't make sense to me. It's fine. Half the people at the improv theater are like obsessed with cards. Like Pokemon cards or Magic the Gathering cards or whatever. One Piece, I didn't know they had cards, but apparently they do. There's cards. They're obsessed with cards. Fine, whatever. It's like all a gambling mechanic, and I don't subscribe to that, but they're obsessed with them, so whatever. So he has discovered there's basically no way to give away or sell old plush toys. They have to be thrown out. And since Greg would rather avoid that if possible, he thought of an idea he'd like to run by us. He found some 4.5 feet tall 15.5 inches by 15.5 inches footprint stuffed animal organizers, and he thought to himself, hey, those might work as corner bass traps. So what do we think? Could it actually work? Would stacks of plush toys be ridiculous and ineffective as acoustic absorbers? Let me see this thing here.
It's going to have some effect.
It's like if you've ever been to... date myself, Toys R Us or even Walmart, and they have those cages that are full of balls, like basketballs and stuff like that. And you can pull one out of the bottom, and then if you're gonna buy one or whatever, that's what this looks like. It's just a wooden little cage with maybe ropes and acoustic and stuffed animals inside of them to hold. You throw them in the top, and I guess you can pull them out the side if you want to. Will this do nothing or do something bad? No, this will do something.
This will do something.
I mean, is it as good as putting, acoustic material in that corner in that shape? No, it's not. But is it better than having just air there? Yes, it is. So sure. Do this. I think this is a good idea.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be... I would doubt it's going to be the last word in linearity in terms of absorption. There might be some squiggles. If you were to measure the absorptive coefficient, there might be some squiggles in that graph.
But who cares? If you're running Odyssey or Drac afterwards, if those squiggles are pretty uniform, maybe it works. Maybe it's something. Yeah,
this is going to do something. Yeah, we're talking about a nearly 16-inch square footprint, and if that's full right up, that is going to have an impact on the acoustics.
Make plush toys that are full of acoustic material and sell them as corner bass traps.
They basically do. There's nothing wrong with using the Dacron stuffing inside of most plush toys.
There you go.
I don't know if I'd want to open it up and deal with all the small amounts of plushy material inside. I'd probably keep them inside of the plush toys themselves. But I think this is a reasonable idea to go for, and then you get to hang on to all of those plush toys and memories, and they get to serve a purpose. I think this is perfectly fine to do.
Dev found a discussion of Jonathan's wide open great room last week very interesting. He was hoping we could elaborate further on the whole topic of needing speakers with more lower, mid-range, and upper bass output. All right. So if we were to measure, say, just a typical bookshelf speaker in a wide open room, would this lack of upper bass output show up in the frequency response graph? ? And if so, could you theoretically correct that dip with just speaker placement, like maybe put the speakers closer to the corners? And what about Odyssey or Drac? Could they correct for this issue? So what does it look like? The output, the linear output of the speaker drops off sooner than maybe the frequency response of the claim frequency response of the speaker would suggest. Generally speaking.
Yeah, other than certain specific frequencies that line up with the dimensions of your room, because there still will be some like standing or close to standing wave, either doubling up or canceling out that goes on. But I mean, those would appear regardless of the output capabilities of your speakers. Yes. You're going to have certain frequencies that just line up with the dimensions of your room, and there's no avoiding that no matter what you do. But other than that, when you go to a larger and a larger space, intuitively, you're getting closer and closer to an outdoor space, right? The bigger and bigger and more cavernous that the room becomes, the closer it is to an outdoor response. And an outdoor response is very, very similar to an anechoic response. So you might be saying, okay, what is wrong with taking a bookshelf speaker and essentially getting something that's closer to anechoic response than it is to estimated in-room response? And I mean, that isn't like inherently wrong. But what we run into is you tend to see frequency response graphs shown to you at one given volume level. Yeah. And sometimes that's with as little as 2.83 volts going into it, essentially 1 watt. And so we're really only getting the, basic sensitivity. Or you'll see, okay, we increased the signal level until we got 85 dB from 2 meters away, or 95 dB from 2 meters away, or something like that. But we rarely see the actual maximum. You might see a graph that says, okay, we tested, what is the maximum of this speaker? And you might see that graph, but if you're just looking at a frequency response graph, then you're kind of getting a snapshot, right? You're getting a snapshot of one particular volume level and a sweep that was played through the speaker in whatever the setting might be. And so you're going to get a response in a very large room that looks akin to the anechoic or outdoor response, or maybe there's a very slight rise because we are still indoors, but it's going to be a little closer to that than it would be in a small enclosed room. But the issue comes into play when you start increasing the volume, because what you're going to start seeing there is running out of headroom, and you're going to see that, okay, the mid-range and the treble still goes up in volume when I turn the volume dial up, but the upper bass and the lower mid-range stayed right where it was, and that level is not continuing to go up commensurate with the amount that's going up elsewhere. Also, as we explained when we were talking about nonlinear human hearing, sometimes you need a little bit extra in the lower frequencies versus the mid-range and treble. And again, you're just running out of the headroom from a smaller speaker that just cannot move as much air when there is more air to move in the room. So it's a very good question that's being asked here, because if you just take a snapshot of the frequency response alone, playing at, say, 85 decibels, you'd be like, what are Tom and Rob talking about? I don't see a big old dip suck out at 500 hertz. This speaker is still outputting 500 hertz, and it looks like a pretty darn flat, straight line. Maybe there's this one little bump that's an obvious reflection in the room, but it's I'm not seeing some massive lack of upper bass, lack of lower mid-range. What are they talking about? It's looking kind of close to the anechoic response. It's no, we're actually talking about when you have to play those higher levels. And this isn't just, I turned the volume up and everything is coming out at 100 dB now. No, we're talking about the crescendos in music. We're talking about the explosions in a movie. A lot of that information is not just in the subwoofer. It's in the upper bass. It's in the lower mid-range that the speakers are handling, and they just don't have the headroom. The headroom just isn't there. So you'd have to look at a frequency response graph that is layering all of the different levels and seeing what's going on there. You're also not going to get, if you're looking at all the popular Klippel measurements now, and they have that estimated in-room response where it's basically going up by 1 decibel per octave from the highest frequency down to the lowest. The lowest is louder. That is an enclosed, medium-sized room that it is estimating. It is not estimating a very large or wide-open great room. That's not what it's estimating. If it were estimating that, it would look closer to anechoic response. It'd be closer to a flat line that doesn't have a rise. Or it might be slightly horizontal S-shaped just a little bit. There's like a little rise in the very lowest bass where the room has taken over and you're hearing still lots of reflection because of just how long those wavelengths are, and then a roll off in the treble. But throughout the whole mid-range and upper bass, it's very, very flat instead of being a tilted up line. It might estimate something closer to that. So yeah, all of those are factors, but it's mainly a headroom problem, and you have to remember that music has crescendos.
And the thing with Odyssey or Drac, could they correct for this issue?
They'll try. They'll fail because the speaker is physically given up. It doesn't have more excursion to give. It's reached its physical limits.
So if you only ever listen at lower volume levels, is this still an issue? If we're talking about a listening distance of 10 feet or so, what sort of speaker sensitivity rating would be reasonable for a living room setup? It's not just about sensitivity.
No.
And that's there is no single metric we can really point at and say this is it. Now, a higher sensitivity speaker, they can, but lower power handling,
right?
You know what I mean? You end up with the same problem. Yeah. So if you have a lower sensitivity speaker but high power handling, you can add an amplifier to it, and suddenly you're getting all the output you need. Whereas a high sensitivity speaker with a lower max power handling, you end up with a speaker that can't take that much power before it starts smoking.
But I mean, we are talking about dynamic range. We're talking about what is the literal dynamic range of the speaker in this case? We are actually talking about the speaker. And so when you get to let's say you typically play back at pretty moderate listening, like 75 dB is kind of the average. Well, there's still going to be crescendos. Those crescendos could still be 20 decibels louder than the average that you're listening to. But now we're talking about, well, my crescendo is hitting 95 dB. It's not hitting 105 dB. That is easier for a speaker to be able to do. Across all frequencies, it is easier for any amplifier to be able to power a speaker to be able to do that. But it is the combination, like exactly how large is this room? Exactly how loud do we need to get to play? And not just how loud is the average? How loud are the crescendos that we need to be able to hit? Because you could get a speaker that has oodles and oodles of power handling, 800 watt power handling, 1,000 watt power handling, but if it's also 81 dB efficient, well, it's still going to struggle because you're going to have to put 600 watts into the thing to begin with just to get, and then you don't have that much headroom left above that. Or you could have a 96 dB efficient speaker, but it can only handle 15 watts. And either way, we're running into, the speaker itself just has a limited dynamic range. So ultimately, in a large room, we're going to want a speaker that's reasonably efficient and has pretty good high power handling so that we have a wide dynamic range for that speaker. So yeah, it isn't just sensitivity because it does depend on what amplifiers do you have, what is the power handling of the speaker. So it's the combination of all of those things that we're trying to get to. And when we have something that's sort of a fixed variable, like, look, this is the amplifier I'm going to use. You can tell me that maybe I need to upgrade my amp, but I just don't have the money to do that right now. So with the amplifier that I have, what sort of speed? Well, if you have a 100 watt per channel amplifier, which is a perfectly decent thing to have, but you've got a really wide open great room, you're going to need speakers that, the power handling can top out at like 200 watts, because that's probably going to be the peak power that a 100 watt amplifier can put out there for a short amount of time. So, 200 watt power handling, but you're going to need some higher sensitivity because you don't have all the watts in the world. And then, that sensitivity could come down a little bit if you've got a kilowatt amplifier and you got a speaker that is a little lower sensitivity but can handle a kilowatt going into it. So, it's a balancing act.
Yeah. We mentioned how the Power Sound Audio 10-inch woofer plus home-loaded tweeter models might be the best choice for Jonathan's room, so long as he doesn't care about their big, plain looks. How do these bigger, more efficient speakers address the lack of upper bass output than that we were concerned about?
They can
so the
play
more
louder.
Efficient. Well, first of all, physics. Let's go with physics.
Yep.
They're big. They're ported. And they can, they're high sensitivity, which means that they doesn't take much power to get them to a loud state, and they are able to, like Rob said, that little bit of power, like 100 watt amplifier, will allow them to get very, very loud and still not get absorbed completely by the room.
Yeah, and Jonathan was using Outlaw audio amplifiers, very good amplifiers that we like a lot, but they were the quote unquote entry level. They were the 140 watt per channel, not the monster, 250 watt per channel amplifiers. So, there we had a fixed variable. We're like, okay, we're dealing with around 150 watts. It can easily, for a short amount of time, go above its rating, but, not way, way higher. That means in order to fill up this wide open great room, and again, we're not talking about like sustained. We're not saying all the time. It's just, if you want to be able to hit some crescendos, you just have to have the headroom there.
Right. Dev's own setup is in the living room. It isn't necessarily wide open to the whole house, but
we missed one question there. Sorry, we missed D. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Those same power sound audio speakers, according to their own Clipple measurements, have narrower horizontal dispersion than some other speakers. Is that actually a benefit, specifically in a wide open great room? What if they were also a wide dispersion? What's the relationship between room size and speaker dispersion? So the lack of wide dispersion is part of a function of the horn-loaded design.
Yes. And just big diameter drivers that are naturally going to start beaming at, higher frequencies.
Right. So, these are the trade-offs that we have with certain speaker design. With every speaker design, there is no. If I tell people this in the bike world all the time, they're like, "What's the most comfortable seat?" I'm like, if there was a most comfortable seat, that would be the one. There would be no other seat in here.
Yes,
it would be it. There is no speaker that has no compromise. Right. There is always a compromise. So in this case, having that high power handling, that high sensitivity. Being able to compel a lot of sound for very little watts, you end up with beaming. You end up with narrow dispersion. Is this a good thing, or is this a benefit in this situation? I don't really think that in this situation it's a huge benefit. It's not a negative thing for sure, because when you have a narrow dispersion, the problem is that it's hard to cover the entire couch, if you will, with the sound that you're trying to get out from the speakers. Yeah, if it's very narrow. But in a large room where you might be sitting further away than narrow, then that cone doesn't have to be very wide for it to hit everything that you're trying to make it hit. The problem becomes when you're going off axis significantly changes the timbre of the sound, which can happen. You can hear it, especially in the tweeter, you can really hear it like the change of the tonality is very dramatic as you go off axis. But in a speaker like this, you're sitting further away. Maybe it's not, you can more directly point it towards the couch, and that cone becomes wide enough where everybody can hear what they need to hear.
Yeah, a speaker with wide, even dispersion is basically never a bad thing. There's not a room where you take a speaker with wide, even dispersion, and that is a problem. A speaker with narrower dispersion can be a bit of a problem in a smaller room. Because part of it is you're just not far enough away for that cone to be particularly wide, but it's also the reflections, right? We are concerned about the reflections, and the way our brain works is if we hear a direct sound plus a reflected sound, and they're really close in time with one another, our brain blends those sounds together and says those are all one contiguous sound, but if the reflection is actually significantly different in frequency response from the direct sound, our brain goes, something's not right here. I'm blending these sounds together in time. I think they're coming from the same thing, but I'm not getting the same frequency response from both of these things. And something sounds a little bit wrong here. That's why wide even dispersion works in basically any size room. In a large room where the walls are far away, the side walls are far away, and there enough time passes between the direct sound that made a straight line from the speaker to your ear versus the sound that went all the way over to the sidewall, reflected off the sidewall, and came to your ear. Enough time passes that your brain can go, oh, one of these things is a direct sound and one of these things is a reflected sound.
Because the difference in volumes.
Well, and also just time. Just time arrival is different and volume is different. And when that is the case, when enough time and volume difference exists, the difference in frequency response from, that off-axis sound is not the same frequency response as the on-axis sound. That is, our brain goes, that's okay. I recognize that one of these things is a reflection.
I can shut that out.
Yeah,
I can ignore that.
I can filter that in my brain, or I can just accept that. I mean, whether the change in frequency response is due to the source has different off-axis response, or the thing it reflected off of changed the sound, I can just recognize that that's a reflection. It's not part of the same sound, and nothing is awry here. So narrow dispersion speakers are more problematic in a small room where those reflections are arriving very, very soon after the direct sound, and your brain can't filter that, and it goes, but I'm getting wonky frequency response here, so something's not right. So what do you know? The Power Sound audio speakers, the gigantic black boxes, are meant for big rooms. Shocking.
Yeah.
Now E.
I already did the room size and speaker dispersion. Already did that one. Okay. Dev's own setup is in the living room. It isn't necessarily wide open to the whole house, but isn't a dedicated enclosed space. I already said that, but whatever, I said it again. He previously set up multiple subwoofers using a mini DSP and a multi-sub optimizer that we discussed before, and that was quite successful. He only sits about 9 feet away from his front speakers, and they are a pair of Ascend CBM 170 bookshelves and a small Ascend Sierra Luna as a center. He was thinking he might want to do a speaker upgrade anyway, and our comments to Jonathan has made him think he needs to consider this whole upper bass output in an open room concern. But he never listens at full reference volume in his setup, and whatever new speakers he gets, he wants to make sure they are going to be a real noticeable upgrade. What does he say he have?
Ascend Acoustics, but it's the bookshelf signature series.
Does having an open room simply limit the maximum performance you can achieve? Will changing his speakers be less noticeable than if you were in a smaller enclosed room?
I would definitely say no to those last parts.
Yeah.
No, it can be a little bit more challenging. It can be a little bit more challenging in a big room, but I would say no. You can definitely.
So he's only sitting 9 feet away, and
yes. So treble and mid range are not a problem.
Not a problem here. Yeah. It's just that crossover region with the subwoofers
and above the crossover region.
Yeah. That you would that you'd be concerned about. So
I mean, the thing is, he's getting the direct sound, right? He's getting the direct sound at 500 hertz. There is direct sound reaching him at 500 hertz, and that might be why he's saying, like, if you play things literally quiet, like not just not loud, actually quiet,
right?
Then this being a problem does kind of go away. Like you're getting enough direct sound, and if your crescendos are 75 dB, then from 9 feet away, these bookshelf speakers can give you 75 dB at 500 hertz. That's okay. It's just that you're not getting any room reinforcement. You might have to start putting too much wattage into them beyond their capabilities to get. They're not going to get to 105 dB. They might struggle to get to 95 dB. 85 dB might be a little bit iffy, something like that, right? So definitely the playback volume does matter. And again, we're not talking about just the average. We're talking about what do the crescendos actually need to hit. I would certainly say if you're in a open living room, that I probably wouldn't opt for, relatively small two-way bookshelf speakers.
Yeah,
they're not going to be a problem for the mid-range or treble if you're listening to them like a laptop where there's nothing playing below 250 hertz or something like that. They're not really going to be a problem. But if you want a full range experience at crescendos hitting upwards of 90, 95 dB, not full reference volume, but not quiet, right? We would definitely say 90 dB is loud. We just wouldn't say it's as loud as full reference volume. So you're getting into that sort of scenario. I would look for, literally higher output capable speakers. I would definitely say you can notice that the upgrade, it's not going to be a completely subtle thing. But yeah, larger speakers tend to cost more, not surprisingly. So that is where we would end up.
Yeah, I agree. Martin. And wouldn't you know it, Martin also listened to our discussion about Jonathan's great room because he found himself in a similar situation. He's dealing with a 20-foot by 29-foot space in his basement, even though he's only sitting 11 feet away from his front speakers. He's found that the upper bass above where his dual subwoofers are playing is noticeably lacking in his room. He's using XTZ Cinema M6 LCRs. I'm going to have to click on that link in a second.
Okay.
And they're good speakers. No complaints about their mid-range and treble, but they're a pair of 5.25-inch woofers and 98 dB sensitivity, 4 ohms and 100.
Sensitivity.
I'm sorry, 89.
98.
Sorry,
they'd probably be all right.
They'd be okay. Yeah, 4 ohms and 150 watt power handling doesn't seem to be enough for the size of the room, and that made him want to consider getting new speakers. Now, 89 is not that insensitive. It's actually higher than average. I think normally we see about
slightly,
80,
but it is 4 ohm, not 8
84.
ohm.
Yeah, if 4 ohms is a problem, and the 150 watt is not great either. So yeah, they're not going to get that loud.
I mean, those are not like poor specs by any means. It's just these are meant for a medium-sized room, even a large enclosed room. They'd be okay.
4 tweeters, is that right?
So I mean, technically, one of those is a tweeter, and the other 3 are acting as a mid-range. It's just it's 3 tweeter drivers, but that's kind of the way XDZ does things.
All right. He's using a Denon X4400H receiver, but he also has an Emotiva XPA5 amplifier to power the front 3 and surrounds. XPA5 amplifier,
that's
right?
200 watts per channel with 400 watt dynamics.
Okay. Front 3 and the surrounds. It's a 7.2.4 configuration. He has acoustically treated the room, mostly at the front. He's in Canada, so cross-border shipping does add to the cost if he goes that route, and his setup basically requires either bookshelf or monitor speakers up front as opposed to towers, although towers are not completely out of the question. So they're still in stands, is what I would guess, based on what he just said. Yeah. So since he's in Canada, he was considering Paradigm. He noticed when we didn't seem all that impressed by the specs of the newest Premiere V2 series, though. He'd like to see some independent measurements to get a better idea of the true output capabilities. Philharmonic and Ascend are considerations despite the shipping charges, but most of Philharmonic's models are currently sold out. And he's also not sure if any of Ascend Sierra series bookshelf models are up to the task. Can the Sierra LX handle the large room size? What about the Horizon Center?
I will answer that right now. The Sierra LX definitely cannot handle the large room size. They went for a deep bass extension, which it achieved, but at the expense of sensitivity. So yeah, that is not a large room speaker. Really, none of the bookshelf speaker models in Ascend's lineup are. So you would want to be looking at, if you're in the Sierra series, you'd want to be looking at the Sierra Towers or the Sierra Horizon. If you want to be able to get to reference volume in the size of room that you have, you might want to be looking at the expensive ELX series. That really would be the way to go to hit full reference volume in your room size from Ascend.
So he listened with great interest to our suggestions, but those power sound audio speakers are just too ugly for him.
That's fair.
I cannot tell you how much I agree with that statement. Not specifically about power sound audio. I don't care. I don't really remember what they look like. But somebody saying, I don't want to buy these speakers because they're ugly, and somebody else saying, well, it should be about performance. You shouldn't care about looks. Shut up.
These
care
are meant
about
to
looks.
Hide in the shadows or go behind an acoustically transparent screen. They are not there to be decoration.
The Aperion Theatrix speakers are not really the form factor he's looking for, and the ProListens are too expensive.
Yes, all fair.
Maybe the Arendale 1723 series, they do look like a good option that he could afford, but their only center speaker option is a WTW or woofer tweeter woofer design. Is the lobing that oh my god, people online should just stop talking. Is the lobing that everyone online complains about with any MTM design really that big of a problem? He's only really concerned with a 4-seater couch from 11 feet away. Any other speakers that we would highly recommend to him? Please, people online, shut up. Just, I get so upset with the parroting and the absolute certainty at which people post things they know nothing about. Things they know nothing about. I cannot tell you how, because I like to watch videos of people fixing things. Okay, so my feeds, my social media feeds are full of mechanics, fixing cars, motorcycles, electric motors, CNCing things, and things with lathes. I love watching stuff like this. I cannot tell you how many of the top comments are, he's not even wearing gloves. Sorry, what? What do gloves have to do with anything in here? Or, somebody is putting new pads on disc brakes on a bike, and the person touched the pad with their finger. They're like, oh, you got to throw those pads away now that you've touched them with your finger. They're contaminated. I'm like, how do you think things get moved from place to place? It's like, and the fact that you're wearing gloves does not make the gloves not contaminated. You've touched the same stuff with the gloves that you've touched with your fingers. It's all contamination. Don't tell me about the oils in your fingers being somehow immediately disqualifying these pads. It's ridiculous the amount of things people say online. So people love to. Somebody said the MTM design has lobing effects, which is not an incorrect statement.
Yeah.
They can.
Oh, you can measure it. You can see it.
Does that mean that it's a bad design that cannot be used in a center channel? Absolutely not. Stop saying it.
I mean,
Stop
it's
saying
something
it as
that
if
a
it's
good
true.
speaker designer should be aware of and should design around. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I've had many MTM center channels in my life. Many that were phenomenal center channels that I sat way off axis to, and I never thought to myself, well, to listen to all this lobing. There's so much lobing in here.
A horizontal speaker is a compromise. It is a compromise. You do need to be aware that there are issues that you need to design around. Arundel did a good job. One of the easiest things you can do is lower the crossover frequency between the tweeter and the other woofers that are to either side of it, which means you need a more robust, higher power handling tweeter so that it can play lower in frequency. Guess what they put into their 1723 speakers? That is a very robust tweeter in those Arundel 1723 speakers. And then another thing you can do is shape the dispersion of that tweeter so that it more closely matches the shape of the speakers, speaker drivers that are to either side of it. Take a look at the waveguide there and tell me that isn't shaping the response coming out of that tweeter to be similar to the response where it crosses over with those woofers. So look, they did what you should do with a horizontal MTM design. If you just take 3 drivers and you slap them onto the front of a baffle and you think nothing further of it and you cross them over at 3000 hertz, you're going to get some audible problems in that horizontal speaker. But if you design it properly, you can use an MTM speaker. Arundel did a good design. You could absolutely use that as a center.
Yeah. So, where did I say that? He's only any other speakers that we would highly recommend. Remember, he's 4-seater couch, 11 feet away. So this is at the limits of many speakers to begin with, even in a smaller room. But he does have an amplifier,
a beefy one,
a beefy one at that, 200 watts. Which in theory he could cross over, he could like bridge. I don't know if that thing bridges or not, but
not particularly easily, but no.
So there is that he could he's got the amp. So what he needs is a speaker with higher sensitivity than 89, or higher and also higher power handling.
Yeah,
so that
and
it could get loud
the
enough.
Dynamic range to be able to do this. The Arundels would not be a bad choice. They would be a pretty darn good choice. I can get on board with that. Now, I mean, look, this is one of the things that I've wished for is reasonably affordable speakers that are appropriate for a large room. And so, look, I'm going to mention, you already mentioned Ascend. You were looking at the Sierra series. You got to go pretty high up in the Sierra series, and maybe that puts them out of your price range. I would say don't completely dismiss the Signature SE2 series. I also get to mention that Ascend has added the CBM 170 SE2 model to their page now, and they've priced it officially at $468 a pair. So more expensive than the outgoing CBM 170 SE, but not drastically more expensive. But in particular, for the large room size, you'd really only want to look at the CMT 340 SE2, but they are surprisingly high efficiency, high power handling speakers for the price of basically $800 a pair that they charge for that.
96 dB. Well, 2.3
that is, they say in room. So it's a genuine 92. It's a genuine 92 dB efficiency. It actually is like a 6 ohm load. It's not an 8 ohm load like they listed, but it is like a 6 ohm load. And then what is it, like 400 watt power
400
handling?
watts peak.
Yes.
240 continuous.
And so you might be saying, are these like a massive component upgrade over the XTZ speakers that you had? No, they're not. They're not a massive component upgrade. They're pretty much on par. That's about where I'd put them. But they have the thing you're missing. So it is going to be a noticeable upgrade for not a crazy amount of money. But then I will also say they're pretty plain black boxes. They're not as big and ugly as the Power Sound Audio ones, but they aren't exactly like, fantastic looking things.
These are not speakers that you're taking the grill off and going, oh, they sound pretty good to look at.
Yes, they're just black. They're black boxes. Yeah. Now with squarer corners that Tom doesn't love so much as the formerly more rounded corners that the old models used to have.
I do like my rounded corners.
But there is a brand out there that's been doing speakers that don't cost a complete arm and a leg, that look pretty darn nice and are very appropriate for large rooms, and they've been around for a long time and people overlook them, and you really shouldn't, because Klipsch's reference Premier speakers are a very appropriate choice here.
Before he goes on, because I don't disagree with anything Rob is saying or is about to say, you may immediately bristle at the fact at the suggestion of Klipsch, because of all the years of Klipsch hate on this podcast and other places. Okay, I want you to understand something. It's okay not to buy Klipsch because you just don't want to be associated with that brand, because you don't want to have to make excuses or explain to your audiophile friends that this one series of Klipsch that we like, or the couple of series that have come out in previous years that we've been like, this is actually a pretty good one. We can get behind this. First of all, most people would be more impressed by Klipsch than by some person, some brand they've never heard of, Arendelle or whatever.
Your friends coming over? Oh, you're just saying purely on brand name alone.
Yeah, just purely on brand name alone. The vast majority of people know the name Klipsch in some form and be like, oh, Klipsch, I've heard they're good. There you go. Okay, so if you want to impress the maximum number of people, Klipsch is a good brand to go with. And we will point you, or Rob will point you towards the one that is actually sounds good as well.
Yeah.
If you want to impress just the select few of audiophile people that are out there, or you want to be able to list your speakers in your forum profile. And you want it to say something that's going to impress all the people in the nameless masses who think that MTM designs are terrible, and refuse to admit that they don't know something, and still think that receivers have a sound. If you want to impress those people, then yes, get something else, because Klipsch will never impress them. But I will be behind you. I will support you if you just say, I don't want Klipsch because I don't want Klipsch. But just realize we would not recommend it if it did not sound good.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, there's a lid for every pot, right? I mean, like,
yes.
There are times when it's like, what's the right solution here? Klipsch.
Yeah.
It's like, you just came to us was like, what's the right solution here, or a very appropriate solution here? And Klipsch reference Premiere. Yeah,
they are blackish boxes, but the gold or copper colored drivers
they have a wood grain.
Cool.
They have a wood grain finish option too. It's a finish. It's a vinyl wrap. Yeah. It's not literal wood on the side, but they have that as an option. You'd want to get some of the big boys. You'd want to get the big center. The RP 504, which is basically a tower turned on its side. Yeah. That you'd want to get that. You'd want to get the 6,000 or the 8,000 towers, right? Like you're like, this is clearly a basement theater, but it's a big theater. You need some output capability. So you're going to want to go for the big boys here. But I mean, don't dismiss them. They're a very appropriate choice here. Would I personally apply some EQ to their response? Yeah, I would.
Guess what? Odyssey's going to do that for you anyway.
Not super difficult to do.
Yeah. Really Odyssey's going to do it for you anyway.
So, I would say don't overlook them. They're readily available in Canada. They are definitely within the budget range that you've specified. I do think they look nicer than a lot of the other speakers. I do too. And they have the type of headroom to be able to deal with your room size. And aside from name brand recognition, almost any of your friends coming over and listening to your system, they're going to be like, whoa, man, it sounds so much better in here. And so most people are going to be very impressed with the Klipsch reference.
Let's be honest. Most of your friends aren't going to notice the difference. Okay, that's all there is to it. They're just not. I wish that was not the case, but that is the case. We've got quite a few. We've got 3 names left on this list, but we're over 2 hours, so we're going to stop. So who we got left?
We have on our list Scott. We're going to dig right into that one first up next week. Nick is on the list, and Ilango is on the list. I also did get a fairly lengthy email from Steve that came in on Monday afternoon. So that was after the normal time that I caught off there. But I just wanted to let Steve know that I did receive that email.
There you go. Like I said, we have one more donation that came in this week that just came in last night.
Gotcha.
So we'll talk about that next week. We want to thank our listeners on the week. We want to thank Alan for going to avrant.com, clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, and sending us a PayPal donation, as well as our 120 patrons over at patreon.com.
That is right, Alan. Thank you very much for the PayPal donation. And patreon.com/AVRant podcast is where you can go to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. So big thanks to our 120 patrons over there.
We also got notes of gratitude from Sasi, Karl, Dev, Bill, Tall Scott, and Ilango. Thank you for thanking us.
I'll say the names one more time. We got Sasi, Karl, Dev, Bill, Tall Scott, and Ilango. Thank you all very much for the notes of gratitude and encouragement. We really appreciate them. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
If you want to get your question answered, all you have to do is ask. Yes, by emailing us at question@avrant.com. For AV Rant, I'm Tom Andry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com.
This is AV Rant.
Now go out and listen to something.